So in this video, I'm going to show you how to use SPSS to create a histogram. So to start off, as you'll see here, I already have SPSS open and my data loaded. I've got the output window over here on the left, and I've got my data window over here on the right. And what we're going to create a histogram of is I'll show you right here. So there's a variable called, let me scroll up to the top, total enrollment. And since this data includes observations or lines or cases, sometimes they're called, for every school, a public school in New Jersey in the 2017-18 school year, this variable total enrollment will show the total number of students in each of those schools. And so we're going to create a histogram of this variable total enrollment, which will give us a sense of how large schools are across the state of New Jersey, or were, in 2017-18. So to create our histogram, we're going to go to the Analyze tab, just like we did to make frequency tables and tables of descriptive statistics. And after we click the Analyze tab, and again, you could get to the Analyze tab here from the output window or from the data window. It's up to you. I'm just going to do it from the output window. Then we're going to go down to this part of the menu here, descriptive statistics. And then we are going to scroll over here to frequencies. And then that's going to open this dialog box. And you'll see that this dialog box is a little bit larger. And that's just to point out that you can resize this by hovering your mouse over the corner here. So you see the two arrows, and then you can make it smaller and it'll resize, or you can make it larger, then you can resize. And this can be really handy for when you're working with variables that maybe have long names, like some of these are here. And so to select the variables that we want to use to create this histogram, we're going to look for them over here in the list of variables, and we see total enrollment right here. And again, we can put this into the list of variables that we want to use for our output over here, either by just double-clicking it. You can double-click it to get rid of it, or you can click this arrow button right here to move it over or back. So we're going to put just this one variable, total enrollment. That's the only thing that we want a histogram on. And so then down here, there's this box here, which is checked by default, which says display frequency tables. And so what this does is if you leave it checked, it will generate a table that shows how many times throughout the data each unique value of this variable occurred. So that means that if there are 3 schools that had 10 students, then the table will show one row for 10, and then there will show 3 over there. But because total enrollment is a scale variable, there are a lot of unique values, and so that table is going to be really long, and we just don't want it. So we're going to uncheck this table box. If you get this error message right here, that just means that based on the options that we've selected, it isn't actually going to generate anything if we click OK. And that's fine because we haven't set all of our options yet. So what we want to do to generate a histogram is go over here to this button that says Charts. Then we click the Charts button. And then you'll see that there's a couple of, we call these radial buttons, here along the left. And since we're creating a histogram, then what we want to do is we want to just click the button here for histogram. And then that's all we have to do. So now we just click continue, and then it saves that option. And then if I go down here to OK, that's going to run the commands. And what we'll see down here is the histogram. But first we'll notice that there's the statistics table right here. So this is what it spits out by default. And what this shows is the number of observations that were used to generate this histogram, and the number of observations with a missing value for this variable, total enrollment in our case. So what this tells us is that within the data set, there were 2,518 observations, which in this case means schools, that had a value for total enrollment, and there was one that did not. And then down here, as we see, this is the histogram, which shows how frequently different sizes occurred. And as we mentioned in class, these are kind of binned, is what we call them, meaning that each unique value of 10 students, 20 students, etc., isn't plotted on here. What we can see is by counting the bars, we can then get a sense of what these bars represent. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 between these lines. So there are 8 bars between 0 and 1,000 students. So that means that each of these bars represents a width of about 125 students, meaning this bar right here represents schools with 0 to 125 students, or 1 to 125 students, 126 to 250, 251 to 375, and so forth. And so that's all you need to do.